Welcome to Noir Festival, Mrs. Läckberg. I'm Marina Fabri, and together with Giorgio Gosetti, I'm in charge of the festival. We are particularly honored to have you as our guest because we are not only big fans of yours, but in general, we are big fans of the Scandinavian thriller. And among the guests of our festival in the past, we celebrate this year our 30th birthday. So we have quite a long story. In the past, we had the pleasure to host such writers like Henning Mankell, Jon Esbo, May Sjöwall, Lisa Marklund, and also Arna Dolin-Rydason. So also, as you will know, you have quite a lot of readers in Italy, and I wanted to thank you for having set your latest novel, Wings of Silver, also in our country. Thank you very much. Today, however, we will talk about another of your numerous activities. That's to say, the creation and production of a television series. I'm talking about Hammarvik. So this is the title we have in Italy. Hammarvik, Amori ed altri omicidi, which we will be heard by the Italian TV La F, and whose first two episodes we are going to watch today in the context of the Noir Festival. So while I'm warmly thanking you for accepting our invitation to be here with us today, I leave you immediately to the questions of Ilaria Ravarino, very good Italian journalist, a great expert in cinema and TV series, collaborator of national newspapers and magazines like Elle and GQ. So the right person. So I will come back to say goodbye at the end of your chat in 40 minutes or so ever, and well, have a good conversation.
Thank you, Marina, and good evening, Camilla. As Marina says, obviously, this is not the first time that something you wrote goes to television, but Hammarvik is the first time you act as a producer too, which is the main reason for this jump. Did you feel the need to have more control on the script, or maybe was it just because you wanted so much to get out of your comfort zone?
Yes, I mean, I consider myself a storyteller for first and foremost. And I love both stories told in books, but also I love TV series and movies. I watch a lot of television, let's say that. And it's always been something that has been intriguing to me to write something directly for TV and movies. So this is the first project where it isn't based on a book. It's an original creation for television.
But your novels have been adapted so many times that I would like to ask you if when you write today, you already think to the screen. I mean, do you have already in mind the pictures like the screenwriters do?
When I write my books, I don't necessarily think about the TV series or how it's going to look on the screen. But that being said, when I write my novels, I see the scenes in pictures. So I have a very descriptive way of writing where I kind of describe what I see in my head. So when I've had my books adapted for television, they've always said that it's quite easy to adapt them because I have such a visual way of writing.
And speaking of that, where did you find the location for Hammarvik? I mean, it's a wonderful place. Is it a place nearby your Fjällbacka, or is it the same place?
No, well, it's supposed to be quite close to Stockholm, but it's not. It's actually quite close to Fjällbacka. So it's placed in the west coast of Fjällbacka, only in the west coast of Sweden, only about an hour from Fjällbacka, actually.
And Fjällbacka is, if I can say, your personal Agatha Christie's St. Mary's Mead.
Yes.
Did you choose to set up your novels and TV show in a small village because it is the place in which you grew up, or because small places are perfect stage for big evil?
Well, I did fall in love with stories placed in small cities in the books. about Miss Marple and Saint Mary Mead, as you mentioned. So, and Miss Marple books, they've always been my favorites among the Agatha Christie publication. I just love them. And I also think that growing up in a small town and now living in Stockholm for 20 years, I do find a small town much more intriguing, because one thing that is very, very important in a small town is, what will the neighbors think? I've heard that all my life, and that places a certain kind of pressure on people, which is fantastic to use in a detective novel or a drama series, for example.
Also, David Lynch knows a couple of things about that, no? If you think to Twin Peaks. How much your novels did contribute to change the image of Sweden, often described abroad as a country with no shadows at all? I mean, a paradise, of course, but maybe not so realistic.
Well, it always amazes me when I go around the world and promote my books and my other projects, that people seem to have this idea of Sweden as the perfect country. But on the other hand, they also think that all women are 180 centimeters and blonde, and then I show up. So that's quite a surprise for them. And I just think that, I mean, I do think that Sweden is one of the absolute best and safest countries in the world. I think we have a fantastic country, but it's not a perfect country. There is no such thing. There's no country that is like a nirvana, which has no crimes, no alcoholism, no drugs. We have all that. But I do want to say that we have a fantastic country.
And speaking of that, as Marina mentioned before, how does it feel to be the one that triggered mass tourism in a small village like Fjällbacka? I mean, do you expect the same effect for Hammarvik? And is it true that people is asking you to put dead bodies, I mean, in the novels, of course, in their gardens?
Yes, when I come back to Fjällbacka, and my mother still lives there, so I go there quite a lot. And whenever I go back to Fjällbacka, people always ask me if I could put a body in the garden, or if I could kill their mother-in-law or one of the books or something. But I try to make up my own murders. But also to answer the other part of your question, Hammarvik is made up. It's recorded in a place called Vänersborg. So there is no actual Hammarvik. I've made it up, and I made it into this typical mid-sized Swedish town. So it's very, very, very typically Swedish.
And I have to say that it's very, very beautiful place.
It is.
Hammarvik's main protagonist, Joanna, is once again a woman. Is there any link between Joanna, the writer Erika Folk, and the revengeful Thea? Could your characters maybe be friends?
I do think that they could be friends. I actually think they would like each other. And I would say that since writers often tend to write a lot about themselves, I would say that they're different sides of me that I pick things from. So I would say that they are, different reflections of who I am.
And that's a question from a fan. Have you ever considered a crossover between your literary sagas?
I have considered it, because Faye grew up in Fjällbacka, and I did start to try to do the math, how old she is and how old Erika is, and if they could have gone to school or something like that. So I have played with the thought, but maybe I'll do that in a short story or something.
Recently on TV, we have a lot of female protagonists in Noir.
Yes.
I was wondering if it depends from a trick, just a literary trick, or maybe it's rooted on reality and a bigger change in society.
I would say that it definitely reflects the change in society, where women are gaining entrance to more and more worlds that used to be very male dominated. In Sweden, a large proportion of police force is now made up by women. It's still more men, but if you look at all the staff, it's like 50% almost. And so I think it's quite natural that we have more female cops, investigators, detectives, action heroes. If you look at the Marvel movies, I mean, you see all these cool Wonder Woman and everyone coming out. And for me, who's raising 2 boys and 2 girls, I love to have a little 4-year-old running around being Wonder Woman. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, I agree. When you wrote your first book at 4, Santa's wife was killed.
Yes.
Would you make him die today? And more seriously, did you really start to think to crime so early?
I've always been very, very, very fascinated by everything that's connected to crime and criminals and psychopaths and serial killers and everything like that. And I don't know why, it's just always been like that. I started very young reading lots of ghost stories, and I also love horror movies still, always have. Me and my daughter have a horror movie club where we watch like basically everything that's come out, and we watch the European ones, the American ones, the Japanese one, the Korean ones. I just love everything that's dark. And the second part of your question, or the first part actually, yes, today definitely I would have had Santa's wife killing Santa. Absolutely. And she would have taken over his job, and she would have done it in half the time.
What about your readers? I'm curious to know, are they mostly women or men, or is it balanced?
When I started writing, I actually thought I would have a majority of female readers, because I do have a lot of everyday lives. There's a lot of emotional drama going on. And I thought that would attract female readers more. But to my surprise, during my career as a writer, I have discovered that I have a huge male fan base among my writers. And especially the books about Fae have really gained a male audience, because maybe it's a bit more action oriented. So that's become really popular. And also Lyckoviken has attracted a lot of male viewers, which is so much fun.
And speaking about your characters, Erika Falk conducts the investigation together with policeman Patrick Edstrom. Why did you choose to have 2 people on the crime scene, and how did you play with the archetype of the couple in Noir?
Well, first, I only wanted to have a female character, actually. That was my original plan when I started writing my first book, The Ice Princess. And I didn't want her to be a police officer, because I was quite tired of, we had so many books, especially coming out of the Nordic noir, with middle-aged men who were police officers, who listened to either opera or jazz and drank too much whiskey and had serious problems with relationships with women. I mean, there were a ton of those books. I wanted to do something totally different. So I wanted a woman, and I did not want her to be a police officer. So I made her a writer. But when I started writing, I realized it's quite difficult to write crime novels without having some kind of police interaction. So I grudgingly decided to enter a police officer. And I was like, how am I going to do that? And then I realized Erika was 35 at the time, single, cute, looking for love. So Patrick Hedstrom entered. But she's smarter than him, though.
And what about Faye? How was born this particular character, a woman that acts in terms of revenge as a man?
Yes, that's actually, you've pinpointed the exact thing about Faye that I've intended to create. And the original idea comes from Faye, you know, the Lives and Lusts of a She-Devil, the book. So that's the first idea. And that's why she's named Faye, of course, as an homage to Faye Weldon, who wrote that book. So first I pictured her as a she-devil. And what I realized when I started creating her was what I actually was doing was creating a woman who was allowed herself to live according to the rules of men. because there's so different sets of rules for men and women. You know, if guys have a lot of women, they're studs. If women have a lot of men, they're sluts. I mean, we have 1,000 examples of where the rules are very, very different. Faye does not care about that. She very much acts like we're used to male characters acting. And when they do, we think it's normal. When she does, we think it's very, very provocative. And I love that. So that's what I've been playing with.
Yeah, we love Faye. Also because there are many good sex scenes in your last books. My teacher in the writing school used to say that sex scenes are the hardest to write because you have to overcome your own embarrassment and also to be true. So is it that so? I mean, is it harder to write a sex scene than a murder one?
Oh, yes. I avoided sex scenes for 10 books when I was writing the Fjällbacka books. In the Fjällbacka books, the sex scenes are that they kiss and then they turn off the light and you have to guess the rest. And one of the reasons was that I've always, pictured my mother reading my books, and it's deeply embarrassing to have your mother reading sex scenes. So, but this time I knew I had to overcome that because I knew that sex scenes had to be part of this story because, she's living out all of her parts of her personality, including her femininity. So I needed to have that in the book. And I really had to struggle to overcome my own, embarrassment. It doesn't help, though, that my mother is calling these books for the sex books. She likes them a lot, but she keeps calling them the sex books. And I beg her to stop, but in vain.
What about the sex scenes in Hammarvik?
Yes, we do have some sex scenes in Hammarvik because it's also very much a love story between two teenage sweethearts who meet up again and fall in love. And it's I don't have to describe them in as much detail as I do in the Faye books, and we can't show as much detail, of course, because that would be a whole other category of movie. So, but it's fun to see my characters really engaging and having that chemistry, and yeah.
You mentioned the teenager in Hammarvik. There is a focus on teenagers. I mean, we see them bullied, we see some extreme, we see pregnancies at a young age. Are you worried?
Of course, I'm the mother of 2 teenagers, and I have 2 more kids who's going to be teenagers eventually. And as a parent of teenagers, you always worry because it's such a rough world today that they're coming into. I mean, we have the whole social media thing with the pressure on how you're going to act, how you're going to look, how many likes you get. That was not something that was important when I was growing up, how many likes you got. And we have drugs, we have alcohol, we have rapes, and we have sex and all the strange, guys watching a lot of porn and getting strange idea what sex is about. So yeah, there are a million things to worry about as a teenage parent. And we've tried to address some of those things because I think that the more you talk about it, the better it is.
Yeah, and in the TV show, this is a really big difference with books. You had to work with screenwriters. For example, here you have the pronunciation is good. Jessica Janket and Lovisa Lovagen.
Yes.
How do you work in a team? I mean, are you okay in sharing your thoughts with others on your script, on your story?
I've actually loved it. I love being in the writer's room because I can go, crazy and create the characters and create the environment and the big drama lines, and someone kind of takes it and mold this into TV manuscripts. So I absolutely love being in the writer's room. It's something that really brings out a lot of creativity in me.
So we are not jealous?
No, not at all. No, it's teamwork. It's teamwork.
Another difference between literature and TV, is the need of a cliffhanger every episode. I mean, you have like 8 episodes and 8 cliffhanger. Is it challenging for you, this kind of narrative?
I love it. I love cliffhangers, and I work a lot of cliffhangers with. I work a lot with cliffhangers when I write my books as well. And I often say that Dan Brown is the uncrowned master of cliffhangers, and I very much enjoyed working so much with cliffhangers for this, because this is a soap. This is, we call it soap opera. I don't know if you have the same word in Italian. So this is part crime story, but it's also a soap opera with a lot of things happening in a short time. These big cliffhangers with a lot of excitement. It's like, oh no, did she die or not? I love that.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because I am really curious. I read that you fought so much to have a soap opera mixed to crime.
Yes.
I mean, there's maybe 30% crime and 70% drama in Hammarvik. So can you elaborate more on that? How did you mix the crime thing with soap opera thing?
Well, the thing is that soap operas was really, really popular in Sweden about 15, 20 years ago. There were a couple of them that were hugely popular. And we still, who watched them back then, talk a lot about them. It's kind of part of our, Swedish personality that and which one was your favorite? Which character was your favorite? So they're quite important in Swedish pop culture, but they disappeared. And I miss them so much. So I was like, okay, if no one else is going to make a soap opera, I'm going to have to make one myself. And since I am a crime writer, and since I love crime, of course, it was very natural for me to introduce a crime element. But it's not more difficult than, if you place a soap opera like in America, the General Hospital, that takes place in a hospital, and then you have all the doctors and surgeons, and it's just natural for me.
And the third difference between books and literature is that you have to play with real persons. So how did you choose the actress for Joanna? Did you participate to the casting process, and what was you looking for?
Well, I was part of the very early discussions of what kind of character we were looking for, and I had made quite specific character descriptions of what the character was about. And then we had a casting agent who, picked out several suggestions, and they test filmed, etc. And I got to see the test films, and I got to be part of the group discussions on who was the best for the part. So that was something that I really love that part. I really, really love that part. And the guy who plays the guy who plays Danne, who plays the main lover character, Johanna's teenage love, he's actually a very well-known Swedish singer. So in Sweden, we know him. He's done a few acting parts before, but he's mostly known as one of our most well-known singers. He participated in Eurovision Song Contest for Sweden, etc. So it's fantastic to see how amazing he's doing this part.
And were you so much on the set, just looking the shooting?
Well, I wanted to be a lot on the set, but then Corona happened. So I was actually only allowed on the set when I do my cameo in season number 2. I show up in a small part. I even have some lines.
Tell us more.
Well, I'm a guest at a wedding. That's all I'm going to say. I don't want to do a lot of spoilers here, but I got to go to the place where they were shooting, and I got to be part of it. And I spent 2 days there, and it was absolutely amazing. The crew has done an amazing job.
And sorry, I must ask: have you ever considered to direct an episode?
No, I don't have the experience, but what I have done is I've formed a production company called Bad Flamingo, together with 2 friends. One is an actor, Alexander Karim, and his brother Baker Karim, who is a director. And we have just finished a full feature movie called Glacier. And I worked as what's the English word? Script. You sit with a notebook next to the director, and so I did that on that movie. So that was very, very, I learned so much about how to make a movie.
And you mentioned your company, but you are also an entrepreneur. You founded Invest in Her to promote female entrepreneurship. I would like to have you elaborate more on that. I mean, is the salary gap still a problem, still in Sweden?
Yes, I know that everyone thinks that Sweden is this 100% equal country. I would say that it's one of the most equal countries in the world, but we're far, far, far from equal. I mean, investment capital, when you talk about that, only 1% of investment capital in Sweden goes to females. The rest, 99%, goes to males. So that alone tells you that we do not have full equality.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
And my last question, this is really important for me. Is it true that you put balsamic vinegar on pasta? Please don't, if you don't want to be killed in Italy.
I want to say how much I love Italy and Italian food and Italian wine and Italian cheese. I love everything about that. But yes, I do put balsamic vinegar on pasta, on bolognese pasta.
Oh. Yes, this is the problem, and this is the problem that the globalization of Italian cooking. But it's very interesting because there are different tastes and different variants, of our Italian cooking. I think we should learn also from foreigners too.
I actually make a very, very good pasta bolognese.
Yeah,
it's quite a good one. It cooks for a long time. That's a secret.
Yes, I had the feeling that you have a good taste of the cooking and also many other things regarding Italy from your last book, published in Italian here, Ali d'Argento, who is set in Italy.
I've actually been to Ravi with friends, so that's why I put Ravi in the book. I loved it.
Yes. You can feel it. It's what you describe. It's not at all a stereotype. It's something you saw by yourself. Okay, so thank you, girls. It was amazing discussion, and it was not at all a conversation, but a masterclass. I think a masterclass on writing a book, a crime novel, writing for a TV series, writing for cinema. So really, thank you very much for this lovely conversation. Very interesting. Of course, there are more questions to ask you, Camilla, because you are such a person full of
the half-naked man who passed behind. It is my husband. It's my husband. I just want to say that.
Thank you. I was thinking, should I ask about it?
Yes, it's my husband.
It was really a piece of theater,
It's like an Italian woman that you can broadcast that. Yeah.
So really, thank you. I hope that when soon we will be back on hugging each other and meeting each other. Consider yourself invited for the next edition of the Noir Festival in Milan. We will be very happy to see you again. And thank you for being with us for now. And I invite all the followers here to link to the platform My Movies to watch the two episodes, the two first episodes of the new series we were talking about, Hammarvik, Amori e Altri Omicidi, which will be aired on TV Live starting from May. And now you can see the fresh two episodes right now in quite an hour if you go to the platform. So thank you very much, Camilla Läckberg. Thank you, Ilaria Ravarino.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.